Cooper Show. Yeah, I believe in you. I don't believe in lucky sevens. I'm not sure about Loch Ness, but I know I believe in angels. I believe in happiness.
Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be back on the show and to see all of you. Everyone is so kind in giving us those thumbs up. Make sure that you go over to YouTube, the Caffeinated Cooper Show channel, like and subscribe, please, please, please. And we have a new campaign coming out. So if you would like to be included in the campaign, send an email to cooperstudios@gmail.com and I will make sure that you're included. But all of the great shows that have already aired, we're doing a rerun program, and they are airing on a special day and time, which is announced through the email campaign on Amazon Prime and on Binge Networks. So if you want to, catch it on Prime and be able to sit back with some popcorn and watch some really great shows, please do, and make sure you send us your email. So tonight's the news, and I've got JC Schweingrouber. Let me just bring him up here because I want to bounce something off of you. So let's get this right. Here we go. So haircuts, right? My daughter and I went to go get our hair done, and every time I do this, every time it's time for a haircut, I will go back through my pictures, which is probably like the worst thing ever to do, because when my hair is a little too thin, maybe because of some medications I have to take and it just thins out, I'll cut it short because obviously it's going to look better. It's going to look more normal short. So I'm like in this in between, and it's nice and thick and it's growing in, and I'm like, yes, I want to grow it back out long. And I don't know why I do this, because by the time I sit down in the chair, I'm like, I don't know what I want. Does your barber just know what you want every time?
No. For years, I would shave my head. Like you've seen me on the show before, like just bald, and I would shave my head for a long time. And I think the lady who cuts my hair, she's like, when I started growing my hair out, she's like, wow, I didn't really know you. I thought you were going bald. I didn't know that you had such a thick head of lettuce, And but I do, and it grows fast. So I think I'm like part human, part chia pet. Every time I shower and shampoo it gets a little longer. It looks caveman-like, So the reason I'm wearing the hat is, one, I haven't had a haircut in a while, and two, I've been dealing with plumbing issues like all day. So yeah, forgive me for the shabby. I haven't shaved because I've had no water. So dealing with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm like you. I get to the barber and I sit down, and I'm so tempted because it gets so thick. It's like, yeah, just shave it. Just give me like 2 weeks where I can just feel the wind on my bald head. But I don't. But I always wondered what it was like to shave my head. So eventually I did when one of my sisters had cancer.
Oh.
And I was taking her to her appointments, for her radiation, and then her chemo was coming up, and it was a very aggressive kind of cancer. She beat it. Okay. So, but they caught it early. It was a very aggressive kind of breast cancer. But when she finished her radiation, her hair was getting a little thin. And then once she started chemo, I knew her hair was going to fall out quickly, because the chemo was like a really harsh kind. They called it the Red Devil. I don't know what kind that is, but that's what the nickname for it was. And so anyway, I picked her up on Friday and going down to our little chemo treatment down at the hospital. And she was like, why are you bald? I'm like, for one, like, I didn't want you to feel lonely. And two, like, I always kind of wanted to know what it felt like. She goes, well, what does it feel like? I'm like, yeah, when the breeze hits it, it's pretty good. It's like, it's kind of nice, So I just shaved it for years.
Wow.
And only recently I let it grow.
Have you ever had it really long?
No, I usually keep it pretty tight always, but probably the longest I've had it, like, I don't know, back when I was in college, maybe a little longer in the back, but never the mullet. I never went for the mullet. So even though I listened to hair metal, I didn't go that direction.
Well, I've got a story for you. Okay. So my parents are very traditional, just a traditional Catholic conservative family, right? Okay. So you've got that picture in your head. Now, picture it 1986, let's call it.
Yeah.
My brother is in high school. He's probably later in high school, maybe let's say junior, senior, something like that. I can't remember exactly when he graduated, but it was around then. And he decided to grow his hair out like shoulder length. It was a little bit shorter than mine is now, slicked it back, made it into this little ponytail, and had an earring. My father was like, no. So my father got some of the screw on earrings of my mother's, and their thing after dinner was sitting on the front porch. And it was so nice in our town because everybody could talk to each other and everybody sort of kind of did the same thing. Like they would all go sit on their porch, you'd enjoy a drink after dinner, and like you're talking to your whole neighbors, right? My father's out there with his beer, these big like chandelier earrings, waiting for my brother to come home from work because he had his earring and his hair slicked back.
Uh,
And I'm sitting there watching this whole thing. I'm like, what, 8 years old? And I'm like, oh no, this is too much drama for me. I'm going to bed early. I'm done.
oh, the memories that last forever. I don't know what we were thinking in the 80s when it came to our hair. And some of the clothes were questionable, but the hair especially. Now, I never did anything kind of crazy, but I was a Billy Idol fan. And my sister Tammy one time wanted to cut my hair, so I let her do it. And she cut it like spiked it up like Billy Idol. And I thought that was kind of cool, but I only had that hair for
Cool.
a while. So that was probably the dumbest thing I've ever done with my hair. Um, but yeah, I don't get what the thing was with a lot of the hair. I knew some people that had long hair. I never had a piercing. I almost got a tattoo once. I went into the tattoo parlor with money in hand to get one, and got thrown out. So,
You got thrown out. I didn't get thrown out. I chickened out. But why'd you get thrown out?
well, it was in Louisiana. I drove down to visit my sister after she got married, and she
Uh-huh.
went on her honeymoon down to New Orleans and ended up just staying. So I was like, oh, it's my sister. I got to go visit her. So I went down there, and she was living in Lafayette, and I stopped at this tattoo parlor. It was like a grand opening. And I thought, man, this is awesome. I'm going to get this tattoo. Actually, this is the dumbest tattoo possibly you could imagine, but I was going to get like the Tasmanian Devil cartoon, crushing a beer hand in one hand with like drumsticks in the other. So anyway, I was going in, I was looking through or I was actually going to get a Rolling Stones tongue tattoo. That was the other one I was thinking about doing. But I go in and they're really busy. And anyway, the guy comes over and like he's the owner and tells me I have to leave. I'm like, well, I'm not just window shopping. I've got money. I'll wait my turn. He goes, no, you got to get out of here. And he kicked me and my friends out. And I'm like, I don't understand that. There's so many other people in there. Well, anyway, when I got to where I was going, we're sitting in the lobby watching the news at this place. I was going to get a helicopter ride. My sister's father-in-law flew helicopters for the guys on the rigs out in the Gulf. So he was giving us a free helicopter ride. So I was waiting on that. And I was watching the news. We walked into the middle of a drug bust. There were undercovers in there. This guy was dealing drugs, using his business as a front. And I'm glad I didn't sit down to get a tattoo because I've only probably got half of one.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought, hey, I just chalk that up as an experience and I'm not going to get one. So I never got one.
I was in Chicago. I was dating my accountant at the time that was also an artist. He was a comic book artist. And yeah, I was at that perfect age, 21,
Yeah.
perfect age to want to get a tattoo right on your hip bone because at 21, your hip bones are just so darn cute. And I wanted, I mean, this was, let's say, 1998. I was 21, 1998. So I wanted the sun and the moon, because that was so unique. And I'm so glad that I didn't do that because now, after 5 kids, it would just be a smudge. It would look terrible. And I decided, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I'm ready to like do it. And he's like, how about this? I'll draw it on you. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And so that was a pretty slick move of his. And he drew it. And sure enough, a week later, I'm looking down at the Sharpie that's still kind of there. And I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So
Tattoos, I don't know if they age well. I knew people that were, because I was 24 in 98, and I remember going to Myrtle Beach with a girl I was engaged to at the time. She ended up getting another one while she was down there, and like a cherub or something. And then, but I knew somebody else who had a cherub, and now they're my age, and it's like the cherub sort of looks like a rat. It depends on what weight or you lose weight or whatever. That part of your body, it's like, I don't think I don't want to walk around with like some sweet cherub changes to a rat. I don't know.
Well, that's true.
Or you get like an angel tattoo, and somehow like 25 years later, it sort of looks like Liza Minnelli, and you're like,
Yeah, the colors fade. Like, I wish the colors wouldn't fade. But we were talking in the green room for a minute, and unfortunately, we've had a lot of big names, stars of all different types of things and genres, and that have passed away. And then you hear all about them after they pass away. Now, there is someone that you wanted to bring up. He is unfortunately very ill, but really well known to our age group.
Yeah.
Big.
If you're a Gen Xer, and like especially if you went and watched Top Gun Maverick, like half the nation did, Val Kilmer. He wanted to be in that movie, but he was so sick, but he insisted on doing his role, and he couldn't talk, so he had to type out. And he was able to talk just a little bit for the role, but he's been pretty bad off, and hopefully his health turns. But I was thinking, like, why do we always wait to appreciate somebody's body of work when they're gone?
Yeah.
And I started thinking the other day, man, that guy's been in some good movies. What made me start thinking about it? I was watching an old 80s flick. Us Gen Xers, we love our 80s flicks, right? So I was watching Real Genius. Do you remember that movie?
No.
He played this super nerd guy at this college, way gifted. He's designing some crazy laser that's actually getting some military application. The thing was, it was a really good movie. It was a comedy. And one of the best scenes is toward the end. I guess they had this laser face this professor's house, and the guy hates popcorn, so he had this big giant Jiffy Pop thing in his house. So like the whole house is destroyed by popcorn. But anyway, it was a funny movie. But I thought, man, why do people always wait? So on my Substack that I write under my pen name Cyrus Alderwood, I wrote like just a little piece about Val Kilmer and my top 10 favorite movies by this guy. And he's been in some really good stuff when you think about it.
Yeah, he has. I brought up his IMDb and it kicked both of us off. Everybody can still hear us. So, I mean, the show goes on, but I just wanted to bring up his picture. So he's such a good looking guy in his day. And just classic looks,
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, throat cancer is such a nasty battle, but he does have so many great movies under his belt. And I'm trying to get to some of the older ones. Oh, Psych.
Yeah.
That was 2014. So that's more newer.
One of his first ones, maybe it was very first one, was called Top Secret. And it was a hilarious comedy.
God.
And if you haven't seen it, you do yourself a favor. It's one of those rare comedies that you very seldom ever see on TV, if ever. But man, it's worth watching. But he was in,
Wow.
I don't remember Willow. It was like a sci-fi set back in like, I don't know, like Middle Ages or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he was forever. He's the Iceman in Top Gun.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah.
Big role in that one. He was in the movie Heat with and who's the other Italian guy that was in The Godfather? De Niro, right? So
right.
That was a big role for him. Which I loved that movie. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, I think was another he was in, which was pretty good. So yeah, a lot of movies this guy's been in. Did you have any favorites that you remember?
Well, I'm looking at some of the much newer. No, not newer. Sorry, later. The first ones is what is trying to come out of my mouth right now. Top Gun. Definitely saw that one. Willow. Didn't realize that he was in Willow. Kill Me Again. The Doors. Did not realize he was in The Doors.
Played Jim Morrison to a T. That was probably my first favorite, my favorite Val Kilmer flick, The Doors.
He played Jim Morrison?
Yeah.
Wow.
A movie called The Saint. I don't remember if you remember that.
I don't remember that one.
Had Elizabeth Shue in it. That was a good one.
Yeah. Wow. Huh. Okay. All right.
So maybe everybody goes out and enjoys a good Val Kilmer movie this weekend.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Hold on one second, JC. I'm going to refresh the show because I really want to be able to like see you when I'm talking. And for some reason, live is live. So hold. And we are back. Let's see if we can both. Oh yeah, I can definitely see you. See, everybody can see you, but I guess that's just how the show is going to run tonight. So we'll do it like a Zoom thing, I guess. All right. So I did notice that in the markets, the regional banks are up.
Yeah.
So what in the world? Take us through this. What is going on with just the banking? Like, is there any need for nervousness?
I don't think so. There's been, well, we talked last week about Silicon Valley Bank and how they were way over leveraged, probably taking some risks. But I've had a week to kind of sort of process what happened with that particular bank, and that's really the only bank that was, well, Signature Bank in New York, I guess, was really poorly run. These banks that we just saw go under have really poor management and have been managed poorly for a long time. But Silicon Valley Bank, that's one that was sort of the lender for venture capitalists and startup companies and things like that. And those very companies would come there and do their banking, do all their payroll and all this, So one of the things that really, after a week of processing this, like, yeah, I know it's kind of poorly run, but did that bank really have to collapse? And if those venture capitalists would have been as loyal to that bank as that bank was to lending to them and their companies that they were trying to fund, and the startup companies in the technology area, and just have calmed down and chilled out, that bank probably wouldn't have collapsed. The problem is when you had all those people that rushed in to get their money, and I think they removed like over 20 or 30% of the assets in 2 days in withdrawals. Well, that's when the bank had to start selling all those treasuries. I told you they had treasuries that they would buy. And those treasuries that they held, say they had 10-year treasuries. Well, those are safe if you hold them to maturity, but you have to mark them to whatever the market value is. So if people are coming in and getting their money and they have to sell treasuries to raise cash to cover the withdrawals of these deposits, well, they're losing a lot of money because as the Fed started raising rates, like a year ago, you could have bought a 10-year treasury at 1.5, but now you're getting them at like 3.5. Well, why would anybody want to go buy a treasury at 1%? You know what I mean? So the value of that's obviously going to change. So that's why they were losing so much money on those treasuries. And Signature Bank was very poorly run for a long time. Now, the one that we heard of over the weekend, a lot of people worried about First Republic Bank. That had been in the news. But nobody really rushed. I mean, they did have a lot of people come in and take deposits out because they were worried. And it's like, classic. It's like a snowball effect. People start worrying, and then everybody runs and takes their money out. And of course, you're going to make a bank collapse if you do that. It's just inevitable. It can be the best bank in town, and you'll cause that. But I guess a lot of people, put 30 billion. Like the top 11 banks put 30 billion in to First Republic to kind of like stave off. And still drop like a rock. And then people were coming in, but it's rebounded today. It was like one of the biggest, bounces in the market, like up over 20%.
That's what I was looking at too. CNBC is reporting regional banks surged Tuesday, led by First Republic. The beaten down bank jumped almost 30% a day after losing 47%.
Yeah, I mean, it's still down a lot from where it was. But I was listening to an analyst on TV today, and this is one that I'll listen to from time to time. He's more of a shorter term guy, like 6 to 12 months is his horizon. But he said that he even dug in and started doing some research. He's like, I like this bank. other than people going nuts and trying to pull money, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the bank. So I think a lot of the regionals bounced and bounced back up. So yeah, I think probably by backstopping, that bank, which I'd really hate to see any company get backstopped, especially these big venture capitalists like Bill Ackman, who was on there, that actually was one of the people on Twitter, I think, that got this whole thing started, like run get your money. Um, but I think, overall the banking system's probably fine. I'm not worried about anything. Smaller community banks are, hopefully they don't put any kind of unnecessary regulation on some of them. But a lot of the problem that was caused was by the Federal Reserve raising rates so quick, and the treasuries that people had on their books that they have to sell when people run on a bank, they're selling at 20 and 30, 40% off.
Right.
So, so people need to remember that when you buy a treasury, you think it's safe, but yeah, it is if you hold it to maturity. If you have to sell it early, you're going to sell it for whatever that value is. And if current rates in the market are 5% and you're holding one at 2, then who in the world wants to buy one at 2? You have to discount that a good bit to sell it. So, so that is a risk, and that's a risk banks take. But there's plenty of capital out there. The other one that was big over the weekend that people probably heard about was Credit Suisse.
Oh, okay.
And,
Yeah.
over in Europe, and UBS was the one who took that over.
Okay.
And I think the government over there was going to backstop some of the riskier assets over there. So that kind of staved off whatever was going to happen over there. But in all fairness, I mentioned last time we talked that I really haven't, as far as a long-term investment, I really haven't been big on the banks in quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Credit Suisse has notoriously been poorly managed and made bad decisions with their investments for, 8 to 10 years. I mean, it's not something that people couldn't see coming, and they got worse and worse every year as far as their balance sheet, and just, their risk level. So that was probably a good thing somebody else came in and took that over, because sooner or later you're just going to lose a lot of people's money if you go under when you're managed that poorly and getting worse every year. So those who say, oh, big Credit Suisse fell, well, I hate to say it, but Credit Suisse sucked for a long time, and they haven't done much right.
I do have a viewer here. Michael Harrison is saying there's not plenty of capital out there. Forget 401k, stock market, even bonds. Buy land, housing, make 7 to 10% interest on your money. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when it comes to things like real estate, yeah, that's certainly a part of the overall diversification. That is something that what I call, like, where I work as an investment advisor, we talk a lot about stocks and bonds and then different types of accounts. But there are alternative investments that are out there that people can look at that can be a part of an overall portfolio, not just what you have at your brokerage account. And land is certainly, real estate is certainly something to look into, because it's a finite amount. They don't make more land, so that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider is, like, metals, precious metals, art. A lot of people don't think about this, but art is a expensive investment, but nonetheless, it's an investment that's lasted, continuing to get more in value over the years. You don't see a Van Gogh painting lose value. It's
True. I mean, for some of those, really classic pieces, yeah, you'd always have a buyer for, but I think that there is some art that would be a particular niche market. Don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some, but yeah, it depends on. Because I'm not an art expert or what to tell people what would be a good investment or not. But there are some people who, the very wealthy, that will have a portfolio of art, different kinds, whether it's paintings, sculptures, different things that they keep in storage, or on their properties that they consider part of their overall estate and portfolio.
Well, I
So,
can tell you what my parents have in their estate. Food. And lots of it. They have one heck of a fallout pantry in their basement. I mean, what do you think? Let's take this sideways just a little bit into the land of preppers. Do you think we should be doing any of that, or just stay calm and wait for the rebound that's to come?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm always sort of the prepared one for a guy who's been without water here for a while. I certainly have cases of water in case I needed it, and then jugs of water just in case I need it. So, like, I always sort of am a little bit prepared if the power were to go out for a week or two.
Yeah.
So, like, I look at it that way. I'm not really into the whole prepping. I actually have a friend who was big into that, and he even has one of those underground food cellars.
Okay.
Um, but I don't know. It's just I mean, if you think the Great Depression and the zombie apocalypse is around the corner, but yeah, I can understand that if things ever got so bad, like banking collapsed and business collapsed, and we were all sort of on our own, um, having $50 in your wallet's not going to get anything for you, and probably neither is a whole lot of silver and gold. It's going to be more of a bartering system. People are going to need things like food, water, water purification tablets if we're going to talk about prepping. Because I mean, you probably can't really trust a lot of the municipal sources of water to be very healthy, you know?
Yeah, no, especially not if it's compromised. I mean, this is such an interesting time, a daunting time where you have so many of these leaders that are coming together in one direction or the other. We don't usually get too heavy into politics, so I'm not going to go too deep with this. But just on the surface, um, there's a lot of situations that could break out really quickly. Do you see any of that nervousness in the market, not only with the banking situation that we've seen for what, almost 2 weeks, 10 days? Um, are you seeing some of that nervousness, or what are you seeing in the market right now?
I don't see that kind of nervousness in any other sector, to be honest with you. But if anything was going to cause a panic, it would be a kind of the fulcrum. It would be the banking sector and the financial sector because people like money is their lifeblood, just like oil to a car. And
Mhm.
if you can't get to your ATM, can't get money out of your bank, um, yeah, I guess if you want to kind of get into that situation and how prepared should you be, I would just toss this out here. What if the next wave of another type of COVID hit and we had a pandemic that was worse and a lot more contagious and we had to hunker down for a while? I mean, because remember all those supply chain shortages?
Yeah.
How long are you going to go without canned food that you can pop the top without a can opener if the power goes out, or you know bottled water, as kind of a supply to keep, or um, the thing that everybody was scrambling for, right? Baby food and toilet paper.
Oh my
Like,
goodness.
I
Yeah.
don't think keep a whole garage of TP around, but it's keep enough that if another pandemic situation were to happen, I mean, just remember those times when you're like, yeah, I needed to do this and couldn't go to the store. What are some of those things that you would need to have around? And I'm sort of wired to always think that way. I have been for a long time. But yeah, I mean, if the power goes off here for a week or two, I'm surviving. I'm fine. Um, and I think a lot of people could probably go through. People in cities would be the people I would worry about because in the cities, your food supply actually, because they bring it all in on demand.
Mhm.
Your food runs out in 3 days in the city. So
Very, yeah, very, very true. I've heard that so many times over and over again. We interviewed Green Greggs. Green
yeah,
Greggs is in Alabama, and he does
yeah.
the prepping stuff. He's a worm farmer. And speaking about farming, Ken Dodge, look at this hunk. Look at this hunk picture he put here on his profile. Mr. Ken Dodge buying stock in food companies and livestock, I've been told, is a safe investment because people will always need to eat.
Well, it's yeah. I guess what you want to call safe. I mean, to some people, just having like a short-term treasury, you get your money back and interest is safe because you're not going to lose. The stock prices of the food companies will go up and down every day, just like everything else. But you're right, Ken. That's what you talk about defensive type of investing. When people say, "Hey, I'm getting defensive with my portfolio," the economy may suck, but people they need to.
They do. They definitely need to eat. He's going to be back in just a moment. We are talking with JC Schweingrouber of Vista Front Partners. All right. So we were talking about Ken Dodge.
Yeah, so I was just saying that those times that, when the economy is really bad, like a deep recession or something, people still need to eat, people still need to shave, people need to brush their teeth and shampoo, like those staples that people need to do every day. You're not going to stop washing your clothes. You're still going to need to go buy soap. So look at those types of companies if you want to call them safe, but they can go up and down too. But that's why I talk about when you look at companies like that, make sure that you do your research on them. Are they growing in sales? Are they expanding their market, or is their market shrinking? One of the stocks that has done pretty well, and this is not any advice to go buy this company, but CPB, Campbell's Pork and Beans, right? Old fashioned Campbell soup, right? So, that's one company that's done fairly well. And like, Procter and Gamble, they make a lot of the products we use in our homes and cleaning supplies and everything else. So yeah, there's a way to look, that's a way to look at it, Ken, as far as, when times are bad, what kind of companies are going to thrive in those environments. I like where your head's at. I like where you're thinking, Ken. So while you're thinking that, if you want to do some research, here's a little advice for you. Go pull out, I don't know, Crazy Nights by Kiss. Put that on, listen to it. Right? I know Kiss, it's his favorite band. So pull out your favorite Kiss album, write down a list of the products that you would buy in a bad economy, and then find out who makes those products. And then see if they're profitable. And do they pay you a dividend for, while you hold that stock? Are they going to pay you a dividend quarterly to, in the meantime, pay you a little cash for your time and effort? So, hey, I'm dishing out homework tonight, Ken. You're first on the list, student. But no, I like where your head's at, Ken. I like what you're thinking. So yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if they're talking about this at my daughter's college. She came home from college last week and she was here this weekend. She said, Mom, can you go get one of those fuzzy cows? And I'm like, okay, sweetie, have you not noticed the golf course can see us? They're not going to be happy with Mom and her cow in the backyard. No, I'm not getting a cow. But yeah, she was talking about that, chickens and cows. And I'm like, oh
Well,
my goodness.
one time a friend of mine, actually, I guess I went in with some other people and I put some money in, and we all collectively bought a cow, and it was one that was going to go to slaughter.
Oh yeah.
The meat, and we kind of divvied up which meat we were going to get, how much steak, so much hamburger, so on and so forth. And would you buy like a grass-fed organic cow, like it's none of the hormones, none of the all the stuff that they put in there, and the taste was different. It was very different.
Oh, it so is. I know. My mother called me and she said, I found some good ground beef at the grocery store. Do you have this type of store near you? And I said, Mom, I haven't bought it at the store in a long time because the prices had gone so high last year. They're starting to come down to a little bit more reasonable, especially the eggs are a little more reasonable. But I'm still not buying it at the grocery store because I found a Market Wagon, which is available in some areas, but it connected me with all of the local people that are either farming or they have livestock. So I just buy my meat in bulk straight from the, I guess you would call it a farm. The word is leaving my brain, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. I try to buy as local as I can.
And it tastes so good. You can
Yeah.
tell, especially in the eggs, you can tell when a chicken has not just just their pellets, just their food. They're actually eating other things, plants and all kinds of things. And it just tastes so good. But anyway, all right. So what do you see? How do you see the market shaking out for the rest of the week? What would you say the future looks like?
Well, tomorrow's going to be a big day.
Yeah.
We had a good rally yesterday and today, which was really good to see because tomorrow is the big Fed meeting. They're going to decide whether they're going to raise. Initially going into this, before the banking situation, everybody expected maybe a 50 or 25 basis point hike. Well, I guess the 50 is off the table. So the Federal Reserve will likely go ahead and raise 25 basis points again tomorrow. Even though the rapid increase, several in a row, is probably like put the stress on the banks. So they sort of cause that problem. The point is, when they're raising rates like that, it's like swinging a hammer. Eventually, you're going to break something, right? You're going to break some eggs to make an omelet. And that's the point that they want to do with the economy, to also bring down inflation. Because you don't have to raise rates to like 9% if you have a recession, and then the demand for things are going down so much that prices have to come down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a crappy way to do it because people lose their jobs. Amazon just announced they're laying off another 9,000. Now that's good for their bottom line.
Yeah.
Right? They were up a buck or two today, but tomorrow will be a big day. So my hope is that they're going to say, hey, we're just going to do 25, and then we're going to pause and see how this is going, because they've already sort of caused some issues at the bank. You keep cranking up more rates, you're going to put more stress on regional banks, and that's not what they need to do. But they need to make very clear, like, okay, we got things that we're working on with inflation, but we also have other things at our disposal to help out the banks and things like that. So it's going to be a fine line, but if it's only 25 basis points and hey, we're going to take a pause, we may see a rally. That's my hope. Now, again, there's black swan events that happen all the time, so anything can happen. So it's where we going this week? Who knows? If they come out and say something like, hey, I think we've done enough with rates, we're comfortable leaving them here. Barring any kind of crazy event or people panicking, thinking, oh God, everything's worse than we thought, we might see one of those rip your face off rallies that we haven't seen in quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
That's a possibility. Whether it happens, I don't know. My suggestion to people is, if you're out there buying in this market, which I'm always a proponent of buying good things, make sure you definitely do your homework and buy companies with good solid balance sheets that make things people need. I always like dividend payers. I like things that are what I consider good value stocks. So things that are trading that are what I consider undervalued versus, the company and where they're at. So I'm always looking for those companies that are trading at a fair value or cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And well, let's see. I was going to ask a question of what is your favorite, but I know that you cannot advise anyone in any direction to
Yeah.
invest in anything particular.
Yeah.
Now, in our previous shows, we did see that the technology sector, however, has been really strong. Is it still staying strong?
Yeah, actually, it's rebounded. I think your bigger tech names are the ones that are more solid because they have billions and billions of cash on hand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Google and Microsoft. Again, I'm just naming companies that have all this cash and tech, but those companies are very healthy, and we've seen they've done well here in this recent rally, and they've held up well. But again, before, when everything was selling off, you got to look at those companies that they got smacked around pretty good when things were really volatile and really tough out there. So people who looking at value and wanted to take had the guts to buy a tech company and know that if it's a long term, it's not a trade, it's an investment, then people who made those moves probably have fared pretty well by now.
Mm-hmm. Now, I noticed that you have a great article out there. It is on your LinkedIn, and it's about retirement. And you named it, Am I Prepared? Retirement, Am I Prepared? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Tell us, how can we find you on LinkedIn? And let's talk about it. Are we prepared?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn just by doing a search for JC Schweingrouber. And I know that's a heck of a name to spell, but you can look up my company, Vistafront Partners Inc., and you'll find a link to me there. That's one of the things that it comes up a lot. I talk to people that are 20 years out from retirement, and I hear one of the things that frustrates me to no end is, I'm probably going to work till I drop. I'm never going to retire. It's like a pipe dream to me, and the only reason it has to be a pipe dream is if you're not prepared or not doing something to prepare. And then, the old Henry Ford saying, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're probably right. Well, if you think you're going to be working to the day you drop, then guess what? You're setting yourself up in your mind for a situation where you're never going to be motivated to save. You're going to be working the rest of your life. I don't know about you, but I want to retire at some point down by the lake and throw a line in the water and have a few too many beers. That's yeah.
Unfortunately, I am a workaholic. I I've got to have something to do. I'm a producer. I spent many years producing people. Now I produce things.
That's reminds me a lot of my grandfather. When he retired, that guy looked miserable.
Mm.
He like the first thing he would do every day with his coffee is like read the entire paper. And I don't mean just like the local town paper. I mean, he was reading the Wall Street Journal and all this other stuff. I mean, so he was sort of up on that news, and when I was little, I was like, what is that magazine with all these weird fractions he's looking at, but it's a lot of people think about what they want to do in retirement. And the first thing I tell people, like, if you want to plan for retirement, there are steps you need to do as far as how much you need to save, and I have some questions that I'll ask and have you think about. But in your mind, you need to think about, just like you daydream sometimes or meditate. What do you see yourself doing in retirement? And I don't mean sitting in front of the TV. If that makes you happy, then go ahead. But maybe you see yourself out at the park with the grandkids, or your grandkids to Disney World, or taking them to see Yellowstone, or you and your husband traveling, the bucket list of traveling around the country and seeing some of the sites. There are things people want to do, like RVing, traveling, maybe downsizing your home for something else that's out in the country. There's think about what you want your retirement years to look like, and when you can get a vision of that, and you can explain to somebody, hey, this is what I want to do in retirement, then we can look and see where you're at right now, what you're saving, and can you afford that? And if you can't, then hey, you got 20 years. Start preparing, or that is not going to happen. So a lot of folks need to think about that. But it's retirement planning is intimidating to a lot of people. It's daunting. People spend more time thinking about what they're going to do on their vacation than they think about their retirement.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to spend a week or two on vacation. You're going to spend 20 years in retirement. So probably ought to spend a little more time thinking about it. As intimidating as, and not fun as some people like to make it, but you can make it very fun. Like you can make it like you and your spouse, like, hey, let's have our bucket list, our retirement bucket list. And
sure.
When you're 10 years out, you talk about it. You start talking about it.
I do have a question though, because Ken Dodge, it's not a question, but it's a statement that he has here, which I can totally see and empathize with. He says, but you can be prepared in trying to prepare, but life happens. And all too often, life costs more than most people expect. What do you do if you're in that situation, as so many people are in that situation right now, where they retired 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and now they're like, I need to get a job. I can't pay for this electricity bill because it's quadrupled.
Yeah, and that's a tough situation when you're already like 1 or 2 years from retirement. And I mean, and life sort of sometimes kicks you in the teeth. It happens to all of us, and I know people who have done very well in their 30s and 40s and 50s, and a catastrophic illness happened. And then by the time they're getting ready to retire, they've depleted most of what they've had. I mean, things happen like that. And man, I empathize. And I mean, I'd send out every hug I could to people that have to go through things like that, because that's scary. That's not where you want to be.
But what's the best way to rebound?
Well, even if you have to go back to work for a while, I guess one of the things is considering your lifestyle, and then what other sources of income that you have. Do you want to have an income? I mean, we always talk about those side hustle things. Do you want to have an income that's based on a 9 to 5 where you're going and doing that again? If you can't afford a health insurance, or you don't have any kind of coverage, that may be what you have to do, right, if you have health issues. But I guess as you get a little older, I guess it's kind of harder to find jobs too. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think with the digital age, When you call the doctor's office to make an appointment, most times, who are you calling? An at-home scheduler. You know, there's a lot of at-home opportunities where people can work from home, and I think so many more companies have become comfortable in the at-home working scenario since we've just gone through
Yeah.
Everybody having to go home by force.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I mean, because I work from home part of the time, and the other part of my office. So I love the working from home thing, and I Zoom meetings all the time. And but that's one option, is finding something that you can do at home that kind of sort of fits your lifestyle and what you're comfortable with. One of the things I would encourage you to do, even if it's I don't know, a lot of people. I mean, some people just live as frugal as they can, paycheck to paycheck, and they don't have a lot of wiggle room for any kind of extra things. But I'll just throw my niece under the bus here. Can't go driving through Starbucks every day and spending like $8.
Gosh.
Knock that off 3 days a week. Take your own coffee. Save $25, and whenever you get a paycheck, pay yourself first. Even if put $25 away in an investable account, and just don't look at it. But the thing is, if you're already at that point in life, and just not any kind of financial advice, but if I were in that situation, I had the ability to save money, I would save it. But the things that I would do is I would use that money for things that I wanted to do. Good. Even if it's just something for day trips and gas money. Life is too short not to be lived, my friend. And a lot of people are too busy worrying about tomorrow or thinking about yesterday that they're not living today.
Right.
And that is a sad, I mean, and here I am in a business where I'm trying to help people prepare for down the road, but that's why my business is the way it is. I manage your money, so you don't have to sit and think about it today. Go enjoy your day, go enjoy your kids, go enjoy your vacation. The rest of it's covered, so, but so definitely keep that in mind, Ken. And I've talked to Ken many a time, and Ken is such a always the bright side of life kind of guy. For those who probably don't know Ken, and he's like salt of the earth, and the guy you give the shirt off your back to if you had to, but then he would do the same for you, whether he knew you or not. So, yeah, I would just say, in the event that you get to save some money and squirrel some money away at times, use that money for things that you're going to make a memory, because that's more important sometimes than trying to plan for some big grand thing, because today is happening today. And unfortunately, not all of us are guaranteed tomorrow.
No, absolutely. That's something I've been doing with my kids for the past several years. I try to do it with everybody's birthday, but it doesn't always work out. I've got 2 of them in July that's still at home, and 1 in January that's still at home. So the January one, that has been really easy, where I'm like, you know what, you guys don't need the tons of stuff. Like, if you want a toy or a game, okay, that's fine, but let's go take a trip. It doesn't have to be some big elaborate trip. I know we were remote broadcasting. I was out of the studio and I was in Savannah, and that was to see my daughter on my son's trip. Now, I didn't realize the 2 of them wouldn't like that, but it's a memory. So I'm all about creating those memories. However, I used some of your advice at the gym the other day. There was this girl, and she was working behind the counter, and she was talking to another boy. Now, the age, I would say later high school, maybe very early college, maybe. And she was talking to this boy, and he had his opinion. She turned, she said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Of course." She said, "I found this bag, and I really, really want to get this bag, but it costs a lot of money. What would you do?" So I'm like, oh, I got to put on my JC cap here. I'm like, well, you definitely want to pay yourself first, but over time. So take $20 out of this week, take $20 out of the next week, and save up until you can buy it. And then you buy it guilt-free with cash. And he was behind her. He's like, "That's exactly what I said." And she wasn't having it. She's like, "But I really want it." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I remember being impulsive at like 19, 20. I get it."
Then buying it, then paying 29% interest on it for the next 8 years.
Yeah.
Oh man, but Oh,
But
the good old days, right?
talking about retirement is a great conversation. And we have spoken so many times about high school education, even junior high education, of financial understanding. And I think this retirement conversation needs to kind of be the birds and bees of finances
Yeah.
between parents and kids. So if you were talking to a child, how would you open up that conversation to talk about the future in savings, maybe even retirement type chat?
All right. Well, I guess first, I'm just off the top of my head, I would be like, well, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then let them have fun thinking about that, because now they're thinking about work,
Yeah.
thinking about a job. Okay, you're making all that money. What do you want to do with it? Well, I want to do this and do that. You know, do you want to go travel? Yeah. Just let them think about things they want to do. Um, and then let them know that the only way they're going to do that is either you hit the lottery or you save. You have to, what's more important, your job or you? Well, me, right? Your health and everything. That's why you pay yourself first. You're the one working. So building those good habits of like, I'm going to take my first 10%, I'm going to put over in my piggy bank. And that's not touchable because I have to break it with a hammer. That's all. I'm only breaking it when the bank is full and I need to go to a bigger bank, or I've reached a goal and I'm buying that bike or whatever. But building good saving habits and then letting them have fun thinking about what they want to do when they grow up and what kind of fun places they want to visit. And did you like Disney World when we went on vacation? Do you want to go back there again? And just those types of things. You can, and just to remind them, like, you could even have more trinkets next time we go, more things to do if you take your money that you've saved too and spend more of yours. Have twice the fun, instead of relying on somebody else. But yeah, that whole self-reliance and what, I don't know, maybe that's a good place to start. What do you think? You're the mom, you've had this conversation with your kids. How do you handle it?
I mean, we've handled it that way of showing them, how to save and what percent you could, try to work it into a budget, creating a budget through Excel. Now, see, with us, we have such a broad spectrum of kids, so we've helped the 22-year-old with her budget because she's living on her own. So now it's like, okay, now this is real world stuff. You have rent, you have utilities, you have security system, you have all these different bills that are going to be coming in. How do you decipher when you can go to Hobby Lobby and when you can't?
Yeah.
And then all the way down to the young ones. So my 12-year-old decided he wants a hoverboard just like his brother. Now his brother just got one for his birthday. He's got two choices. Either he can wait 5 months until his birthday and ask for one, or he could come up with a financial plan of how he can earn the money to buy exactly what he wants. And he decided to do that. So he got out like a little journal and he started writing down ideas of how he could make money. And some of these ideas were out there, but some of them I'm like, okay, yeah, these are good. These are good. You could, do this or you could do that. So he's using a journal to journal his income, but he's not at the point to where he has a consistent income to be able to figure out saving and spending.
Yeah. But that's awesome. He's thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing better than 95% of the parents out there because you got them thinking about it. That is so true. Now, one of the things that I always bring up to people that they're so shocked about is like, there's a thing called the rule of 72. And that if you have a 10% return every year, you double your money in 7.2 years. Or if you have a 7.2% return, you double your money every 10 years. So when you look at it that way, you could, maybe I would ask my niece, for example, she's a teenager. Like, if you had $100, you just went out and worked, you had $100. You can go spend that on whatever you want. And then you're going to have $0. And then you're going to have to work again to get another $100. Or you have the option of taking that first $100, investing it, and instead of working for another 100, let that 100 work for you. then you go out and you earn another $100. You go spend that while this one still keeps working. So why would you work hard for your money when your money can work hard for you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when they think about it, maybe that way, I don't want anyone to think it's easy money, because there's risk and things like that, and risk and reward, like anything else. But that's maybe one way to remind them, like, do you want to work harder for your money, or do you want your money to kind of work harder for you?
And that's an interesting balance, to try to balance that conversation with that young mind. Because I mean, wouldn't it almost, if I was a 5-year-old and you're telling me that I could take $100 and make 1,000 out of it by investing it, I would be like, yeah, right on. Let's gamble through. I'm with you, because I don't understand the whole risk reward system and mental thought of it. And then you go back to what's going on in our banking system, where it says that regionals got a boost after Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said Tuesday morning that the government is ready to provide further guarantees of deposits if the banking crisis worsens.
You would have been better off just not saying anything. A lot of these, they're okay. That's just adding a little bit more fear to a situation that doesn't need it, really.
Right. And so my mind, in the conversation that we were just having about kids, I'm like, isn't that just going to make depositors feel like there's no risk to this gamble? I mean, mommy and daddy's just going to make me whole again anyway. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
Oh, that's a bad thing. You're rewarding bad behavior.
Right.
So I mean, and it's not on deposit like you and I would put our money in, but if we're buying that particular bank stock, we should do our homework.
Mm-hmm.
Like I told Ken, go out and grab Crazy Nights by Kiss, listen to the album while you're looking through First Bank, right? Or whatever you're looking at. So but I think one of the things, I'll just go ahead and like kind of bring this back around. Like, one of my things I want to do, right, when I'm retired, is I want to do some traveling.
Yeah.
There are places that I want to see in this country I have not seen yet, and I have no excuse why I haven't yet. That's my own fault, right? But I want to see the Grand Canyon. I want to go around the Florida Keys. I want to go up and down the East Coast to those beaches, those lighthouse towns, where there was a lot of piracy back in the old days, those pirates, and find out places like where those stories took place. Just as a history buff, things I want to experience and learn. I want to go to Alaska, but only in the summertime, not in the winter. Yellowstone, I'd love to go to Yellowstone. But those are some things that I would put on a bucket list, maybe at retirement. Hopefully I'll see them all before retirement. But those are some things that I want to do. So the more you think about what you want to do, the more excited you are to kind of plan for those things. I mean, you're not going to have a vision and then not have a plan at some point. It's like building a business. You got to think about it in that way. So I have a list of questions that I will ask people in advance, and I'll say, hey, I want you to. I give people homework. So if you're 10 to 20 years from retirement and you've saved some or none at all, whatever, here's some things. Here's some questions I want you to think about, and I want you to write the answers down. Even if it's a little essay, write it down. And then when you're done writing these answers down to these questions, sit down with your spouse or your family and talk about it. And then how does that vision of, how would your answers compare with Brett's, and see where you guys are on the same page and where you're not, you know what I mean? So you kind of look at you. This is going to be another show. Right? I have a whole list of questions. But no, ask yourself, when do you want to retire? How long do you want to work? Some people work jobs they love and never want to quit. I mean, my grandfather was like that. And maybe you're like that. Maybe you can't sit still. Maybe when you retire, what kind of hobbies do you want to have to kind of keep yourself busy? Because you don't want to just sit there and turn sedentary. I don't want to be a pile of jello. I don't want to be Jabba the Hutt watching TV my 5th year in retirement, right? And then so when do you want to retire? and what do you want to do in retirement? So that's when you start thinking about the bucket list things and things you want to do with your family. And um, here's a big one a lot of people don't think about when they're retirement planning, but are you going to downsize your home, and where do you want to live? You may have a home that's geared for like 5 kids, right? Um, but when you're an empty nester, are you going to hang on to a house that big if you don't need it? So people don't think about that, but if you have a house you can sell on the market for 750, and maybe you owe 250 on it, or 200 or whatever, and then you get 500 out of your house, well, that's an extra 500,000 going to your long-term savings for your retirement years. And a lot of people don't think about that.
I have a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you have a large house, large property, because exactly what you said, you had a whole bunch of kids and now you're empty nest. So you want to downsize. How do you get around capital gains?
Well, if it's in a retirement account, you don't have to worry about it. On your house, you mean, if you sell your house.
Yeah.
Well, you're still going to have to pay the taxes on those, unless you've done some. Now, there's some estate planning that you can do. Now, I'm not an expert on any of those, but I can find some places if you're interested in where you can explore this. But there's some ways you can set up your estate to avoid some of these taxes. I would say probably not a general tax advisor would even be able to help you, but there'd be specialized tax advisors that work in that field that could probably be able to point out how you can do this and how you can set up an estate to be beneficial or drag those gains out for a longer period of time. So that's one thing, and to be continued. I will find some information for you on that. Okay. But even if you sell your house, I mean, you may sell your house and get a $500,000 profit out of it, and then want to buy a condo for $250 somewhere.
Right.
Somewhere nice, and you're still living nice, but you don't need to have all the expenses that go with owning the home, and when you can downsize and get a condo, or some people want to maybe a little cabin by a lake somewhere that's reasonably priced, something lesser, but you're still getting a good chunk out of your home. So a lot of people forget about that, but when you retire and no one's coming to visit you that often, it's not like you have a lot of people staying at your house. Why do you need a house that big? So that's one thing to consider. How many years do you need to plan in retirement? Are you retiring early? If you retire at 65, should you plan to live 20 years in retirement? Or what if you live to 90? Are you going to stretch that out? What will be your income sources in retirement, and are they going to be sufficient? So your minimum required distributions from your retirement accounts, and a pension if you have that through work, Social Security, for example. How much do you have saved, and how much you need to save to live the lifestyle that you want to have? So it's almost like you're looking into the future, and I know it's kind of hard to tell with pricing, but you kind of want to have a budget of a certain amount of income you need to live off of each year. So to live that long in retirement, 20 years in retirement, you probably want to have a rule of thumb, maybe drawn down 5% of your retirement each year. You can still leave it invested and still let it grow, and still leave a legacy for your children and grandchildren, something for your heirs to have. Here's a big thing people need to consider also, and I mentioned this when we were talking about Ken's situation. How are you going to pay for healthcare? Do you have Medicare? Is that going to kick in? Do you have another health plan that maybe you kept from work that was part of your package? Those are some things that people need to consider. If you've been to the military, I mean, are you going to rely on things like veterans hospitals, things like that? That's a big cost saver, right? For a lot of people. But if you don't have that issue, then you got to look at things like Medicare and other supplemental insurance you can buy, and how you're going to pay for that. Retirement should be looked at as an opportunity to sort of chase your passions in life that you really didn't have time for earlier in life. So just remember that. And it's not, what kind of passions are you going to pursue? I can see you staying busy doing even shows like this all the time in retirement. Oh, yeah. Even if you retire from the day job, you're going to find a dozen things to do, because you don't sit still. You're not that kind of person. I've got to know, I've got to understand that. You just you move. Um, but a lot of people are afraid and intimidated to think about it. But back to Ken's situation. When you're at a stage in life where you can chase your passions, and you can kind of pick what passions you want to pursue, that's where the rich is. That's where the value is in life. So whether you've got 50,000 in your pocket or $50, are you happy in the life that you're at?
Yeah.
I hope you're paying your rent and keep paying your mortgage and doing well. But those are the things to think about. And even no matter what age, Ken, if Ken's interested in doing some investing, and even if he doesn't do it through me, he can set up just a general investing account and index fund somewhere if he wants to just kind of put money in the market in general, like an S&P 500 index. And if that's something, Ken, you want to do, and do maybe 25, 50 a month or whatever to add up over time, just to have a little something, maybe a couple of years go on vacation, let me know, and I'll be glad to walk you through places you can set that up, and get you started. Like I always tell people, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. So so don't worry about like, all I've got is 50 or 100 or whatever. But you got to start somewhere, or you'll never start.
Exactly. Well, I think I missed a question though, and I got to ask you, did you say one of the questions is how many years are you going to live?
Yeah. How many years should you plan to live in retirement?
Oh, okay.
I mean, no one knows how long we're going to live, but if you retire at 60 and the average lifespan is, 85, for example,
Mm-hmm.
25 years you need to think about of income, how you're going to make your money last, and then how you're going to make that money last those amount of years. That's going to impact your lifestyle. Now, if you work up until the age of 70 or 72, and you got like 10 or 12 years on an average, and you're still healthy and you're feeling good and you're going to do all these things, well, it's a lot easier. You're still earning money in those years, so you're adding on to whatever you have. But it's a lot easier to make money last for 10, 12 years than it is for 25.
Sure.
So
That's a tough one. I would have to say that, if obviously this is now my homework, but to do this homework, my first answer was not a very, it's an honest one, but it's probably not taken very well. In retirement, what experience do I want to have? I want to relive the birdcage. Like I want to live above that stage show, and that'll just be me in retirement. But how many years do I plan to live? If I had to look at that with my financial brain, I'm going to be like 105, because I don't ever want to be in a position where it's
yeah.
like, oh gee, you only planned until you're 85. Happy birthday, you're 90 and broke.
Yeah, exactly. So you definitely want to be overshoot those years.
Totally.
You never know. I mean, I just saw somebody who, like the oldest World War II veteran or something, was like 106 or something. It's like, who plans to live that long? But as we're all living long, actually, lifespans actually kind of started going the other way, didn't they?
Yeah, they have.
We peaked, but you never know. With modern medicine and science, if we all got healthier and ate better, you never know how long we'd live.
Yeah, you never know. Well, this is great advice. Thank you so much. I'm going to put some of your information here so that people can contact you, but go ahead and tell us, what is the best way that we can contact you?
Yeah, this article is going to be on LinkedIn if you find me over there in that list of 8 questions. Like I said, write out the answers, little essays. Have fun with your family talking about it. You can find me online at vistafrontpartners.com, and you can email me at jc@vistafrontpartners.com, and set up a time we can talk. It doesn't cost a dime to have a chat about anything. If you're concerned about retirement or haven't started, and just looking for like, hey, how do I get started in all this, and what do I need to look for, and what can I expect? Just give me a call, or shoot me an email, and then we'll set up a time to have a Zoom conversation. It's always nice to look at who you're talking to, so we can do that, and kind of see what where you're at in your stage of life, and what kind of goals you have. Because the more you think about it, the more you talk about it, you make it a you can just talk yourself into a better reality down the road. I love seeing people succeed at all levels, whether it's succeeding a little bit or succeeding big time. I'd love for all of us to retire multimillionaires. Not going to happen, but hey, we can have certain principles that we live by, like pay ourselves first, and teach those that are younger around us to do the things that maybe we wish we would have done when we were that age, and go from there. I'll just go ahead and get my phone number out on here too. It's my work number is 859-750-5881. If anybody ever needs to call, just leave a message and I'll get back with you as quick as I can.
May I have that one more time? I'm going to type it in.
Yeah, 859-750-5881.
Okay, great.
And for those who are wondering, I'm in Virginia. My company headquarters is in Frankfort, Kentucky, which is right between Louisville and Lexington, and I'm not too far from northern Kentucky and Cincinnati from that point. So, but we work with clients really anywhere. If you have any questions, feel free and touch base, and we'll be glad to do what we can to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, JC. This has been a great time with you. And I love how we always have a moment to talk about something that's really enriching to everybody's life, not just what the markets are doing right now, today, yesterday, in the future, but you always give us a lesson. And I really want to say thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody that watches, and thank you for having me on the show as often as you do. And those who pose questions, and I appreciate Ken. Ken's always good to watch, and he has questions, and he has a lot of concerns, and but Ken is one of those people. I look at him, and it's like that guy. He's so rich in heart and spirit. I just consider him a wealthy man anyway, just a wealthy in character, and that's the kind of thing you want to strive to be when you're older.
Absolutely.
Taste in music. What can I say? The other gentleman, I forgot his name, but bringing up all those other like alternative investments about land and things like that, and there are other things out there other than like 401ks, but be well diversified is one of the things that we always talk about in this business, because you never want to put all your eggs in one basket. Yeah, the stock market is great, but having your own business and having property and other types of investments that you can diversify across is that always just minimizes your overall risk. And so he made a good point by bringing that up. So appreciate him tuning in today too.
Surely. That was Michael Harrison. He just moved. Well, I say just moved. It's probably about 18 months that they've been in their new house in Nevada, just outside of Las Vegas. And they moved from upstate New York. So he was very happy to make that move. And they're very, very happy in their retirement out there.
Great.
Yeah. Well, JC, thank you so much. Let's do it again.
Heck yeah. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye. Everybody, thank you so much for commenting and watching. And make sure, again, go over to YouTube, like, subscribe, and we are an Amazon Prime Video. Just search the Caffeinated Cooper Show, as well as the Caffeinated Cooper Show on Binge Networks. Thank you, everybody, so very much. As always, we are blessed. You are blessed. Mwah. I love you. And stay tuned for another great show coming right at you.